Hi everyone, this is Desiree Banyaredse. Welcome to my channel. My channel is dedicated to cloud automation and all things that are Linux. If you find any of these stuff insightful and useful, I would like to ask you to subscribe and help me grow this channel, just so I can continue to share all the things that I learn about these platforms. This is going to be part 2 of my CICD pipeline project that I've been working on. There's been some changes since last time that we had the video. Mainly, we have switched it over to another scaling group instead of having an instance. And we have our load balancer in front of that, and it's also connected to my hosted zone right here. So that way we get some DNS, so we're not having to type in our IP addresses every time that we're trying to get to one of the resources. So with us using our scale group, we originally had it set up 3 VMs. I am having a bit of an issue as far as the sticky IP for the load balancer not working properly as I want it to work. So it ends up losing a connection to the instance it's connected to and jumps to another instance. Therefore, each user session gets lost. I'm going to be working on fixing that, but for this presentation, we're just gonna downscale it to one instance just so we could present this and not have those kind of issues. So let's go ahead and jump into it. But one of the other changes also is that we are now running our Minikube locally. As you can see, we are in a Ubuntu Windows subsystem and not in the cloud. That just helps us out as far as with Minikube and Kubernetes in general. You have to set up ingress and an ingress load balancer in order to forward traffic from the internet to the containers. I don't currently know how to do that. I have a YAML file that I created, but it's not working, so it's a work in progress. So we're gonna be circumventing that by just running it locally so we can just access it on our network. Okay. So we are where we left off. I've already started our system. Here is our IP address, our Jenkins instance, and with the SonarQube and Maven, it's all already up. So we're gonna go ahead. I'll need this to enter it into our SonarQube information. There we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and head over to our Jenkins instance and we'll do the configurations as we did last time. So we need our initial password. If you remember, we'll have to connect to our instance. And as it tells you here, and also it's in my GitHub, you'll have to get this file right here. You need the proper permissions to do so, which you should have no issues with as long as you run the Terraform code. And here's our initial password. Still suggested plugins. While waiting for that, we'll jump over to SonarQube as we will need, and if you remember, the default admin credentials for SonarQube are going to be admin. You go ahead and set up your password here, and we'll need a token from right here. Security. We'll wait to create that when we need it. Once we get into our Jenkins, you will also need a token from your GitHub and a token from your Docker Hub to be able to connect to the systems you need to connect to. First thing we'll do, let's go ahead and add our add-ons. If anybody has any suggestions, like currently I do not know if we can configure this to already have these add-ons, things like that. If anybody has had experience working in Jenkins, please suggest it in the comments or shoot me a message. I have all my information somewhere, either on my YouTube, my LinkedIn. Just reach out to me and let me know. I always love more work and learning more, so it'd be much appreciated. Docker pipeline and SonarQube scanner are added. Go ahead and restart it. Let it properly install those funds. And we'll come back to it in a few. Shouldn't take too long. Right, there she is. So once that is set up, next order of things is we're gonna add our credentials. That's Jenkins, credentials, system, global credentials, add. And all these steps are on my GitHub. So just if you need a more detailed walkthrough, just go ahead and go over there and just follow the instructions. Or do both. Watch the video and also follow the instructions. The credentials that we'll need. Let's start with GitHub credentials. In my previous video, I did show where to grab these credentials. So if you need to get more information on that, please go over there and watch that video. It'd be much appreciated if you like and subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Grabbing the token from my other screen here. There we go. Looks good. Next up, secret text. Over our center cube. And for center cube, we'll come over to our center cube, generate that token. That's Jenkins. Name doesn't really matter. So name it whatever you need to name it. And drop the token in there. And our Docker credentials. That will just be your username and password. Don't forget these IDs do matter as they are referenced in our Jenkins file. It is how it's going to pull those credentials. This needs to match exactly, and the username and password and all those other tokens, they should be your specific tokens and passwords. Hopefully I remembered correctly. All right, so we're all set there. Now let's go ahead and create our pipeline. Good job, pipeline. Name the ultimate CICD. Okay. All defaults. Pipeline script from SCM, Git, and I would recommend go ahead and grab my URL here for the repo, or go ahead and clone it and make the proper modifications that I mentioned in the other video. The main ones are gonna be to the YAML deployment file, and you'll see in another video. We need to change one of the entries to a 0. Make sure you change this over to main or whatever branch that you're working on, and drop that. This has to be all exact. Save. I've done this a few times, that's why I'm able to run through it, but every so often I also run into issues, just missing some couple steps. All right, so once you have that all set up, go ahead and run it. Should be good to go. So while that does its thing, the new change as far as our ArgoCD, we have moved it locally. We're not using Terraform to actually build it. I have a shell script that I have wrote, and it's all included inside of our repository. So these are the two scripts right here, because you need to install Minikube to run ArgoCD in it into your local machine. Also, then you can install the ArgoCD operators, which think of operators as automation engine. It makes sure that your ArgoCD is running properly and the configurations are set the way they're supposed to be. You can find a whole bunch of other operators over at Operator Hub.io. They have them pretty much for all services. Just check it out. That way you don't have to configure your own Kubernetes for things like this, ArgoCD, Epicureo, Apache Spark. Yeah, so very useful tools. You definitely want to learn a little bit more about operators. It's looking good. So let's go ahead and do our Minikube installation. I have previously installed it on this machine, so it should work, but it might have some issues because of the fact that it was previously installed. The script does ask for the username that you want to give permissions to, as far as permissions to create Docker containers and all that jazz. So go ahead and specify your current username or the username that the user that is going to be creating Minikube and all that. In my case, it is going to be Hypher, and you'll need your password for your account. And the script just goes ahead and installs all the necessary prerequisites and Minikube itself, and it works. Looks like did not create our group. We can check that here real quick. Let's see. Nope, it did not create the group. I'll have to check on that later to see why it wasn't able to create the group. But for the time being, let's go ahead and just add the group manually. Docker and AG Docker. I think that's in the right order. We need permissions. Not lock etc password. Try again. It is user mod dash AG and group Docker to Hypher. Well, that worked. Okay. And to just make sure, there it is, Docker Hypher. Okay. All right, so we're all set. As you can see, pipeline is complete and Minikube is installed, and we can check that by doing a Minikube status command. So yep, we're good to go. Minikube is installed. Go ahead and start. Meet your Minikube. Shouldn't take too long. if you are using any other systems other than Ubuntu, if you just keep in mind of the hypervisors or container runtimes that are used on those machines. In this case, we are in Ubuntu, so we're just using Docker, but you may have to change that depending where you run, where your local machine is. Fortunately, I do not know that off the top of my head, so just please do your research or just go ahead and download Ubuntu subsystem. All right. Another option is also to have a virtual box and set up Ubuntu in there. So once our Minikube is up and running, let's go ahead and install our ArgoCD on it. Once again, just run the script. This one does not take any entries. Just run it and it does its thing. One thing I do have in this script, there is a wait in there because of the fact that it takes a while for it to initialize the different containers. There's a 30-second wait before it does the next command, which I added in there. It's gonna pull the password for your ArgoCD. Versus ArgoCD. I have to check on that after this command runs. Probably should have did proper testing, but we're kind of just doing this on the fly. As I've said previously, we're building it as we fly it. All right, error from the server service. Okay, makes sense because ArgoCD namespace was not found. Let's do kubectl. Let's see what's on here. Get namespace. So we did get the operator namespace. Let's see what's in here. Get pods in the operator namespace. ArgoCD operator. That's what we got. I see what's going on. So let's go. This is gonna be inside of our YAML here. And this gets downloaded as well. So once you run the script, but as we can see, it's looking for a namespace that is saying that it doesn't exist. It has worked in the past, so I'm not sure why it doesn't want to work now. Get to see some troubleshooting here where we're failing, but it wants to work now. All right, well, that is something that we'll check out later on. And let's go over to, I want to check our namespace again. And I believe this ran it in the default namespace. There we are. There's our server and all that namespace, and they're already running. So I am just gonna run this command again for our script, and it should skip all of the steps that's already been done. It's pretty much just gonna give us, well, we'll see what happens. Of course, we have to be in the right directory. Yep. So what it does is skips all the stuff that's already installed. ArgoCD already exists, and the file is unchanged. So the command did run this time. So I'm wondering, I will be diagnosing that later on. This is our 30-second pause before it runs the next command, which will pull the ArgoCD password. So this right here is our initial password. It is usually stored in the ArgoCD cluster. Let's see if we can find it for you guys, just so you know. Get -a. Oh, obviously it's gonna be get secret a. So the secret, which is gonna be our initial password, is stored in the ArgoCD cluster secret, and it is base64 encoded. Part of that script is for it to pull that secret and decrypt it and post it here in plain text. So that is what this is, and we'll need that in momentarily. Next thing that we need to do is we need to port forward our, and I'm wondering if our script does that. Let's go over here. It does not. So it did patch our cluster IP over to being a node port, which we can see if we do a minikube get service or minikube service list. As we can see here, none of these have node ports. One of the scripts, it does patch this to have a node port for our ArgoCD server, and then we want to port forward this over to our local system. When we do that is minikube service, and you specify the server that you want to port forward. ArgoCD-server, and I want to run this in the background, so we want to add an ampersand sign at the end, and it'll tell us our IP address. Here's our IP address. Once we have that, we can Control C, and it is running in the background. We should be good. Jump over here. Let's proceed. And here we go. Here's our ArgoCD. Initial admin username is gonna be admin, and the password is gonna be what we copied earlier. Sign in there, and yeah, so we're in. Let's go ahead and do our initial configurations. The application name can be anything, so I'm just gonna name it Hypher. Project name, just use the default. This is gonna be automatic. Repository URL is gonna be to our Jenkins, wherever you have your deployment YAML saved. So go ahead and post it in there. I think that's gonna be default. This is gonna be your cluster URL. We're just gonna use the default one, but if yours isn't different, just go ahead and put that in there. Namespace in our case is in the default namespace, so go ahead and specify that. Path, I forget that. So we'll need our path to our YAML manifest. Looks good. Everything else looks good to me. So let's go ahead and run it. Beautiful. Okay. So what this does, it will automatically sync with your repository, and it will see our most recent deployment and go over to your Docker Hub and grab the image that was created from our Jenkins instance and it'll pull that image into your Kubernetes cluster. You can see visually here, if we move this over a bit, it does create our 3 replicas here. And where it gets this documentation is if we come over to my GitHub. So unfortunately, we did lose audio here, but I'm just gonna do a audio overlay instead. And here I am showing the manifest that is used by Jenkins. That manifest YAML file is whenever you make changes, that is what that's the deployment file that Jenkins is gonna make changes to, and ArgoCD is gonna look for changes in there to update the containers. It's gonna look at this image ID and then go into your Docker Hub and grab that image. So here I am gonna show that it is running. That are pretty much our images that are used by ArgoCD. We were able to create them in a container and deploy them to the Kubernetes cluster. And that's what we'll see here on the left side. You can see those are our 3 containers. And we'll go ahead, we'll clean it up. We'll just query the specific namespace, which is gonna, in this case, gonna be default namespace. And those are our 3 images. So once you have, let's see what we got going on here. Yeah, once your new code does run, you can go ahead and do a refresh, and ArgoCD is smart enough to notice that from that YAML file, the manifest, that there was a change made. There's a new image. It will go to Docker Hub, grab the new image, and decommission the old ones. And that's it. That is pretty self-explanatory at this point. Of course, there's a whole bunch of other configurations that you can do. You can set up permissions and authorizations and different tests, even in Jenkins. This is I just wanted to showcase how we are able to set up an automatic way of deploying the infrastructure around these applications and automate some of the application configuration itself as well. Once you have it set up in this way, of course, we're running the EC2 instances in the cloud. We're then able to also just destroy it all in one fell swoop. And you don't gotta worry, it's gonna be rebuilt the same way every single time. So that way you're able to save on costs, and you're not spending money on resources that you're not using. You only have to spend them up when you need them. Um, this is the code that this is what you're going to type in to destroy your infrastructure. It's just a Terraform destroy command. You can put auto approve, not recommended in production. I am going to go ahead and erase it. And we're just going to run it normally. and we can just look at the output that you get when you run this command. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Well, Linux itself is always has always fascinated me. Um, just the aspect that you can automate everything, as long as you know the commands for it. When you're working with Windows, well, let's not talk too much garbage about Windows, but I'm not a fan. Um, Linux is much simpler, but that is the output that you'll get, and you'll just go through the different resources and make sure that the proper resources are being destroyed. Um, as you can see here, they're all it states in front of them what is the resource that is being destroyed, and you just approve. Once you've confirmed that is the correct, everything looks good, just type in yes at the bottom. That's it. Terraform will go ahead and destroy all of the different resources. Uh, the other thing you should note that Terraform does run in the cloud. As you can see here, uh, what it does is it connects to the Terraform Cloud API and tells Terraform Cloud what you want it to do. Um, so even if you close your shell, your local shell, it will still complete the Terraform destroy whatever command that you had just recently ran. And that's part of the Terraform Cloud connection. I have a prerequisite video say going into details on how you can connect your local environment to your Terraform cloud. And as you can see here, all the instances are now being shut down by Terraform. So yeah, that's the whole video. That's pretty much everything. I will have to find something new for us to do. Next time around, I will be figuring out the load balancers and maybe even running the Kubernetes in the cloud if we can figure out the ingress and load balancer. That stuff is a lot more technical and a lot more complicated. So it may take me some time on that. But yeah, if you find any of this stuff valuable and you would like to see more of it, please consider subscribing and liking the video. If you have any suggestions what we can do, if we to improve our application or anything, any future content that you want to see, just go ahead and leave a comment, reach out to me on LinkedIn or any other social media. Uh, thank you. My name is Desiree again. Yeah, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you and take care.